Welcome everybody, and let's go and dive into the dynamic realm of renewables energy, more specifically wind energy. And today we're going to be focusing on leadership in wind energy. So how do we bridge actually the gap between the utilities, but also the OEM, right? And what I want to do for you today is to explore the crucial leadership strategies that we can put together to enhance the collaboration in the sector, to drive innovation, but also accelerate project success. So in an ever evolving landscape of wind energy. So what I have for you here is two magnificent speakers, three actually, because George also has joined now. But before we go and kick off the conversation, what I'd like to do is to kick off first of all with a poll, the survey poll, just for us to figure out whereabout we are with the topic, because I like to understand what is your understanding of this topic before we actually come in and add our contribution, right? And then, so if that's okay with you, I'm just going to launch a poll right now. And I really would appreciate if you could actually respond to that. Play the game, please, ladies and gentlemen, because it's all about sharing some insight with you. But before we share any insight with you, it's good, first of all, to learn from you, right? To see whether or not what we're doing, what we're thinking is the right way. Yeah. So I'm just going to launch the poll right now. So you should be able to see that. Now let's move on with our topic for today. So I think what we're going to have now, we're going to have a quick presentation by Afonso, who is the CEO of AFF Windservices. So the webinar is actually kindly arranged, sponsored by them. So we want to thank them for that. And Afonso just going to give us a short presentation of what they've seen as challenges and what this company is all about. But before we do that, Afonso, obviously, it would be good for you to have a quick introduction of who you are and what you've done in the past, and just go to your presentation. I think the presentation, if I'm correct, it's about 5, 6, 7 minutes, right? So it's not a long conversation, because the key thing for me is to get as much conversation as we can with people that were kind enough to join us today. So Afonso, I'm just gonna go on mute, and then if you could please unmute yourself, and maybe, so yes, have a go.
Yeah. So hi everyone, thank you very much for joining this webinar today. It's really a pleasure and honor to have everyone here on board. So a little bit about myself before I go into the company itself. So my name is Afonso Faria. My background is mechanical. I am Portuguese. My company is based in Portugal and I live in Portugal, but I actually grew up in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam. So that's also where my education has been. That is also, I would say, so you can say that is the biggest influential professional attitude that I have, which is Northern Europe, together with, of course, the Southern Europe of Portuguese that is in me. So I've been working in this industry for 18 years now. I just realized that last week that it has been 18 years since I first started in the industry of the wind. And it's amazing on how fast time can fly, and how much you can actually do in the years that you're active, and how much you actually still have to do, because there's still a lot of work. So that's a little bit about myself. As the CEO of AFF Windservices, well, as any CEO of any company, big or small, you have to carry a little bit more of responsibility and a little bit more of delegation also, but a little bit more of headaches that just comes with the job. But that is something that I have always embraced, and I've always been the person to be. So the support for people around me, and the support to grow and to help other people grow as well. So I think I'll share my screen, if I can do that here on Zoom, and I'll show you. Yeah, let me find that. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yeah.
Yeah. So AFF Windservices, we the experience and the expertise that we bring into the business So we are considered, and we do consider ourselves as experts within renewables. We are able to, together with directly from ourselves or together with other collaborations and other partners, we can support in any solutions that is needed, any special tasks, special demands, special organization skills. We can support with that, and we can develop further into it. A little bit of history and experience. The company itself was established in 2016. Of course, back then it was myself working as an installation supervisor and site manager. I've also had some support or some installation support that I supplied. That was purely manpower management and manpower supplying. The biggest growth in the company itself started in 2021, so it's quite recent, and that is when we signed the contract direct to Vestas as a service supplier. Over the last 3 years, we've done quite some projects. One of the biggest ones in Sweden, in North Sweden, which was 84 turbines, Vestas turbines in 2021. In 22, we have had a very nice experience on a smaller project, but a very nice project in Denmark, where the project itself is a joint collaboration between wind and a waste management company that does they recycle the waste by burning it, and they've had the turbines there also to support with the power production and the export. In 2023, so last year, we've had a lot more projects that we've been involved in. Most of them, even though we do have our own yearly planning with the bigger projects. But in 2023, we have also been asked to support and bring in our expert input into other projects. So therefore, we have had an overall presence on a lot more projects over the Nordics. When I say Nordics, that's Norway, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and UK and Ireland. This year, we have AFF Wind has within Vestas the biggest presence in management within the UK and Ireland market. So that is an area that is currently growing. It is challenging, a little bit challenging when it comes to resources deployment to UK and Ireland itself, mainly due to Brexit. That is purely what it is. The manpower and resources becomes a little bit more of it needs more focus, it needs more structure. That is also the reason why last year in the summer we have established a UK entity as well. So currently AFF Wind has a Portuguese entity and a UK entity so that we can support that market. In the portfolio services, what we can do, operation and management, so service, O&M, that is something that we have now a portfolio agreement for Vestas Portugal. We want to get back home. It's not necessarily that we want to get back home, but we want to support home, which is Portugal and Spain. That is also where I've started. I've started in Vestas Portugal as a service technician. So my climb up to be a CEO is from 2006 until now. Service technician, service support, and service area manager into the installation, commissioning, site management, and eventually CEO of a company that is supplying all those services. Installation supervision, that is also something that we can do, we are doing, and we will be expanding in Q4 within Vestas Northern Europe. We are also going into or stepping more into the utilities and supporting the customers, the end customer. We are currently negotiating a contract to support in Finland with one of the biggest utilities in Finland, where we will do management and supervision of an ongoing project that will start in the summer. And as we speak, we are doing also retrofit. So in Spain, we have a project that has been postponed now for 2 weeks because of the weather. We cannot go in, or we could go in, but it would be a waste of time because of the wind, and we simply could not do the job. But this is retrofit, so this is replacing main components. That is an area that we are expanding to, that we are growing into. And our flexibility, our commitment and flexibility is what keeps us going as well. So this is a contract that is, like I said, 2 weeks waiting now, and we are still flexible to jump in with other teams and do the task. Financial stable. Fortunately, we are financial stable. Then a little bit about organization and structure. So of course, our operation method has been based on our own experience and what we've seen as a need to and a requirement throughout our professional experience. So not only myself in AFF has got 18 years in this business, but also the workers that work with me, the managers that work with me, the supervisors that work with me, they all have extensive experience. So that is how we build our organization. We are also big. I believe that one of the key things that is missing or that can improve and needs to improve is communication. So we are big on daily follow-ups, structured follow-ups. It doesn't need to be a long weekly meeting, but short, daily, strong, powerful meetings and updates. That is what we believe that is the key and the strategy that needs to be improved. Resources, equipment, we have a strong network that has been built over the last years. And of course, we're always open to do a strategic collaborations with other partners. That is also something that lives in me, and that is that sometimes it's best to work together with another company than to try to grasp everything and then you can't supply. The commitment, that is of course something that we stand for very highly, and that is that quality needs to be high. And when I mean quality, it's not just the end product, but also what we deliver and what we commit to. The quality needs to be high. It needs to be powerful. If we are giving feedback, having meetings on updating projects and so on, then it needs to be powerful. It needs to be communication that is sharing what is going on, what the problem is, but also what the solution could be. It's not just simply about feedbacking back into an organization saying this is going wrong. And then, of course, flexibility. We are flexible 100%, and we are always trying to meet the customer's requirements. That is also because we believe that, well, we embrace that every project is our project. So every customer's project is our own project. And then a little bit about consultation, management, supervision, all the services that we do, they all go step by step. Of course, you could jump in, you could try to jump a few steps, but then you're going to triple, you're going to fall. So it needs to be structured. You start with planning, you start with studying the project, making the budgets, then you go into the project planning before you actually go into the project, resources, deadlines, complexity of the project, and so on. You take your next step when you actually start to allocate people, you start to allocate resources, tools, everything that is needed, and then you go into your execution, where you then maintain monitoring and you maintain the service quality. At the end, it's always followed up by documentation, follow-up, correct documentation, correct follow-up, correct closure of projects also. That's something that we've seen over the last years, and that is sometimes that we come to the last day of the project, we close the project, and then the customers and the project managers, they have a months on end closing of costs and claims, and that's something that we try to avoid. So we try to make sure that during those steps, everything is looked into and everything is followed up. And then, of course, what we compromise to, competitive budgets. That means that we are within where we should be cost-wise. We don't go above just for the sake of it, but we also try to not to go below just to get the job. That is something that AFF Wind as a company will not do. We prefer to stay as we are than to grow under budget and grow with all the headaches and all the problems that will later on make us fall. Adapt the solution, so we will adapt, we will look into the solutions that is needed and we'll adapt. The resources will also, of course, try to find qualified, do everything that we can to find the qualified resources. Equipment, if there is a need to, follow-up documentation. We have our own documentation that follows our own works. We are actually currently working on digitalizing our own organization and our own structure on documentation, follow-up documentation, management documentation. That is ongoing. It is not as far as I wish it could have been, but it is ongoing. I have Wednesday, I have another couple of meetings following up on that. But the plan is that we have a digital solution. So we want to get away. It's not that we want to get away from Excel and all the paperwork, but we want to get away from all the manual writing, handling, and all that. We want to get away to something that is digital. You go into a web page, an application, you put in what your problems are, your daily update, and then artificial intelligence will help us to create a better flow and a better overview of what's going on. That is the future. We are in 2024. Artificial intelligence is here. We need to go with it. So that's something that we are investing in also this year. Required reporting, it will tie up with that. And then service provided with expert dedication. As I mentioned before, your project is our project. If we fail, you fail. And if you fail, we fail. So when we take on a project, we are taking it on as that it was our own company, and that as that it is our own company that is performing the task. And that is it about AFF Wind.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Afonso. So that's very much appreciated. So I think you can leave it up there for a second. I'm just going to have a chance now to give Miguel the chance to introduce himself, and then George as well. So if I start by you, Miguel, a short introduction about obviously who you are. So obviously you work for AFF, and then I got George as well.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So my name is Miguel Ferreira. Like Afonso, I've also started as service technician, and it's quite surprisingly, but also roughly 18 years ago, yes, in Portugal. But my experience went a bit in a different direction, or other parts of the world, where I went from being a service supervisor, and I worked for service for many years, but in South America and Central America mainly. And for a few years, I was actually setting up new service teams. This gave me an opportunity to learn a lot, and especially learning about communication skills and learning how to understand people from different nationalities, understand even different languages, or even having the language barrier and still overcoming it. So that has been a big part of my life in the wind industry. And a few years ago, I decided to return and live in Europe again. So that's when I joined again Vestas Northern Europe through Afonso in site management, and where I grabbed all of the experience I had from South America and from all these countries where I've been, especially in communication skills and seeing a bit ahead of project objectives and how the work will flow, where I grabbed all that knowledge and experience and brought it over to site management. Yeah, that's basically a little bit about myself. I live in Portugal currently, and I grew up also in Holland, in the Netherlands, where my background is electrical engineering. So
I think you have a very, very extensive background, I could see, very rich. I'm sure it's going to come up when we go to the question. So George,
yes.
so I've not forgotten about you. George, can you hear me now? If yes,
yes, I can hear you. I hope you can hear me.
Thanks very much, George, for joining. I know you're also extremely busy. Maybe if you can have a really 30 seconds, because I like to go into some of the questions that I have for you. And
No
before,
problem.
obviously, there's a number of people that have joined up to hear you speak here. So I want to give them enough chance to speak. Just a very short and sweet. That's what we need.
Yeah, so George Aluru is my name. Currently, I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Electricity Sector Association of Kenya, and I also chair the Global Wind Energy Council's Africa Associations platform. So we kind of bring together all the different associations working on the wind side within GWEC, so for Africa. Yeah, and before that, I'm also a trained engineer. I live in Nairobi. I'm trying to be quick, and was born and do live in Nairobi, a trained engineer. Yeah, and I've also in the past been a developer of wind projects. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So what we're going to do now, so I'm just going to go through a very quick Q&A session for you three. So I have one question for each of you, and after that, I'd like to open up the floor to people in the room. But what I'm going to say to people in the room, if you don't mind, please, already, so start asking your questions, and my colleagues, Rashid or Janet or Brian will actually collect that, and we can come back and ask that to Afonso, Miguel, or George, right? So please prepare your question. Don't tell me you don't have any questions. I can't believe it. Otherwise, you will not be able to sit with us, spare with us an hour, right? You probably have some questions. You've seen what Afonso has been sharing, what Miguel has been saying as well, and also what George is about to share. So definitely do let us know. So let me come back to you, gentlemen, if that's fine. Yeah. So I'm just gonna start in reverse, right? So obviously, George, you finish up. Let me just start with you. So how do you, in your role that you're doing, which is a very important role, how do you actually leverage leadership in order to enhance the partnership between private sector, private investors, and also public utilities within the wind energy? Because in the continent, most of the utilities are public, yeah, so they're owned by the government, but a lot of the investors will be private. So, what is the best way to to make it work? So, and how do you leverage your leadership to make it work?
I know that. Thank you for the question, Tony. And I think, as you mentioned, if you look broadly to the continent, the bulk of the utilities are public, as you said, and then also there's not so many like public-led wind projects. If we now really narrow down on wind, you'll find yes, there's some public companies doing utilities doing wind. And there's also the opportunity for the private sector, and especially I would say EPC companies and even OEM companies to then partner with these state utilities to help them to install wind turbines, to manage them, to train. So this is I would say that there's more like a skill gap that the private sector coming in into the continent could really help the utilities to fill that gap, and also provide latest technology and case studies. We are Africans. We prefer to see and touch things, not just have like a theoretical kind of explanation of it. And I think the good thing is with these and mostly European and American utilities, you'll find the private companies, they will have examples of things they've done before. The wind industry in Europe is way more advanced and older than the wind industry in Africa. But also there's many other like mechanisms for the private sector to get involved in the power markets of Africa. So like for instance, in Kenya, you have a feed-in tariff system that allows a private company to come bid and build a power plant. Actually, the biggest single power plant in Africa is in Kenya, 310 megawatt, owned by private sector. And there's similar structures. South Africa is probably the biggest market today in wind in terms of Africa. And a lot of that, I think most of it is done by private sector. Eskom, the utility there, just has a few projects. So there's and this is across the board. There's projects in Senegal, I think commissioned 2 years ago or something. There's projects being worked out in Rwanda, in Uganda, in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, in Namibia, wind projects. So there is a lot of opportunity for the private sector to come in, and basically organizations such as ourselves and the Global Wind Energy Council itself work to improve the policy and regulatory environment for such companies to then come in and take advantage. Let's say if we have an issue in terms of integration of wind in the grid in Kenya, then ASAC and GWEC, the Global Wind Energy Council, will then come in and try to see what needs to be done. What do we need to do in terms of improving the grid to be able to take in more wind, and through that you have an opportunity for both the OEMs, the EPCs, and even the utilities across the board in the continent or from Europe to jointly solve these problems that would allow for more wind to be deployed. So the role, our leadership role is then to be the bridge between these parties, different parties in the market, to provide cross information for anyone who's interested to have information on any of these markets, on the status of the market, on how to, how to get involved, what sort of investments are needed, which OEMs exist on the other side, and what are the technologies. So we kind of sit in the middle, and also our more public facing side, where now we are doing advocacy, whether it's on the regulations, the specific regulations required in country, or even just public engagement and information. And I'll end with a story. Yeah? When I was when I was a project developer, we had to go to this indigenous community and explain about wind. So you would get really weird kind of comments. Someone has told them that, if you install the wind farm and the blades move, your women won't give birth. And you need to now do that public side to engage the population in Africa to just understand how wind works. And then also like really practical solutions. Like, you don't go to these indigenous communities and start telling them about, I don't know, a turbine is 120-meter hub height, and you need to tell them, so how many cows stacked up would that be? Like, you give something relatable. And the associations actually do this work. They try to break down whatever technical jargon that us as engineers feel like it's our day-to-day language, and then make this understandable to the general public, and also to the politicians and decision makers in different ministries.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that, George. Can you hear me? Yeah, very appreciate that. So I know I have a friend of mine who was actually part of the webinar. So Kobe, are you here? Because I think he just texted me saying that he may have to leave. Yes, I think, yeah, Kobe, I know that I wanted you to have a couple of words, but obviously you need to exit for very important. So if you just take a couple of minutes before we can go back to Afonso and also Miguel. So the reason I wanted Kobe just to announce it, I'm just going to announce it a little bit earlier than what I planned to, because we just signed a very interesting partnership with Kobe just recently, especially for startup in Africa, so in energy. So wind is definitely included in that. And Kobe, you wanted to say a couple of words. So if we keep it short and sweet before we can go back to it. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Tony. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Kobe. Kobe is the nickname. Formerly is Jacob Calderon. I'm Israeli guy, 62. Most of my life lived in Israel. 25 years in intelligence unit in the IDF, in the Israeli army, lieutenant colonel. I retired from the army, so in 2004, and built 4 IT companies in Israel. Today, we are managing global investment advisory company that's based in Israel and Vienna in Austria. Our aim is to help startups to succeed with our services, with our connections to potential investors, and especially we help the companies to obtain grants from the European Union that can help companies to raise, for research and development up to 9 million euro. We are now cooperating with Tony in order to help startups from Africa to penetrate the European market, to help them to connect their technologies to potential clients, partners, distributors here in the region, especially in the DACH region, in all the German language countries, and in parallel to help the companies to obtain grants for R&D, for research and development, and to help the companies to succeed. And I'm very excited to start this collaboration with Tony and with his partners, and to be much more focused on the African market in order to help the innovation ecosystem in this place to be much more connected to our investors and our business network. So thank you very much for this invitation. I'm sorry that I need to quit from this session because we are celebrating the Passover. It's a very important holiday for the Jewish community in the world. And we'll be in touch. Thank you very much, Tony, for the invitation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And hopefully, guys, you won't mind. But I know a lot of the time people reaching out to me want to talk about money, right? And, we do all we can to make sure that we can have startup and businesses. And with the partnership that we just struck with Kobe's organizations. So we're hoping that we'll have the chance to help a lot of startups, secure markets in Europe, but also get grant to get moving. So back to you, Miguel. So sorry for this. I'm hoping people won't mind me sharing some good news like that, right? So I like to see a lot of smiles. I'm seeing some smiles, so people are happy. Excellent. Thank you, Kobe, for stopping by. I appreciate that. So now, Miguel, I want to come back to you, but let's say again, a very quick thing. I like to get the chance as well to people in the audience to ask questions. So, Miguel, from your extensive experience in site management, I know you travel the world literally, dealt with many cultural differences, learn languages. What kind of leadership qualities do you believe are essential to bridging the gap, between utilities and OEM? And like I say, short and sweet, so that I can leave the chance to the audience to ask questions.
Yes, thank you, Tony. So I would say the main quality or the most important quality is communication skills. And when I say communication, it's not just about bringing our message over, but it's more about listening and understanding both OEM and both utility and what their point of view is, what their objective is. And so as site manager, we are sort of the glue between both of them. We bring them together. And in order to bring both of them together, we need to understand, or we need to be able to communicate both parties and what they want actually. So in the end, both of them want a successful project, of course, but everyone is rowing their own boat in different directions. So I've learned, and I've learned this actually from traveling quite a lot of countries, even in countries where I couldn't speak the local language, and just communicating by reading people, by understanding what people want, and then come to an agreement with what they want, what we can bring, what utilities want, OEM wants, and sort of get an agreement in between both of them so that everyone is happy with a win-win situation. So yeah, if you want, can I expand a little bit more, because I have so George was saying about that in Africa people are more not theory but hands-on, and they want to see. I had this experience in Uruguay many years ago. I was setting up a new service department for one of the new, or the first bigger wind farms in Uruguay. And there actually the utility was government, and they understood wrong. They understood the concept of a wind farm wrong, because it was in the beginning, right? So they thought that turbines generate energy, so we can shut off all other generators or power plants, special diesel power plants, because they're too expensive. So one weekend, overnight they shut off the secondary power plant because there was a lot of wind actually. But as soon as the wind went down, power went down. And they thought, okay, there's something wrong, so we need to, power went down, voltage dropped, so they increased the voltage on the grid, which caused problems in the wind turbines. The wind turbines didn't burn down because they have their own protections, of course, but they did stop. Eventually, they had to set up another power plant on diesel that was too expensive because it was the emergency power plant. And they came back to the OEM, to Vestas in that time, claiming that the turbines didn't work. So I had on one hand Vestas trying to claim that it was not their fault. On the other hand, I had the utility government claiming that it was their fault, and someone had to pay for the damages, of course. So this ended up in a lot of research on what happened. We could finally pinpoint what happened actually. We saw that they increased the voltage manually. We saw that the voltage was dropping because there was low wind and there was too much demand. And this is the communication skills that site management needs to have. Understand what both parties need and want and are searching. And in the end, we came to a resolution where we reestablished everything. Everything was working again. And then I took it on myself, or an initiative, to give training to the utility, training on how wind farms work, so that it would not happen in the future again. And this is something that you learn over the years, especially when you travel to countries that speak a different language, have a different mentality, and do need to see things in hand and not in theory, like George was saying. So
excellent. Thank you very much. That's a great example to illustrate your argument. So gentlemen, I think I want to move into Afonso, but we're going to do it slightly differently because obviously I'm also conscious of the time. I want to respect your time. We're going to start taking questions, and Afonso, I'm just going to give you the chance to respond to the first question, if that's okay. So if there is a burning question here, I think Rashid, you can actually give me the first question, or maybe if there's somebody that's courageous enough to raise his hand and wants to speak, we can allow the person to ask the question very quickly. But let me warn you, first of all, short is sweet. Yeah, that's what I prefer, right? Because I like to get a couple of information. And before we even dive into that, so Rashid and Janet, so what we also thought we were going to do, because we knew already that the session was going to be short, but I wanted to make sure that I give the chance to everybody to get their question asked and answered. So basically, I've talked to Miguel and Afonso before, and I've agreed with them that, you know, I know they are very busy on project. Like I said, they're always moving to site, but they've agreed to have some one-to-one with few people, right? So at the moment, I want to limit that to 5. So if you have some very specific questions on project, please, you can actually reach out to Miguel and Afonso. So I think Rashid, if you can drop the link into the comment box, or while Miguel or Afonso is responding, I will do that. So there'll be a link there. Just go in the link. So obviously click on the link, and that's the link there. We just added there. If you want to ask something, yeah. So we're just gonna have the file. Please just use that if you have a very specific question. You may have a potential project you believe that they could help with, right? That's sort of free consultancy that that they give to you. Please use that properly. So is there any question that anybody want to ask in between? So I could see some question there. So okay, so there was a question for Mr. George, but let me just go to the question. There is a question from, is there a question for Miguel? If yes, Rashid, can you ask the question? If you could see a question for Miguel. Or does anybody want to raise?
Tony.
Yes,
There was one question for Miguel.
No. I want Afonso, but okay, ask. Afonso going to respond anyway.
Afonso,
that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the question is asking the range of project size that they support.
Okay, Afonso, you could ask, and Miguel, you can if you add something. What range of project do you support, Afonso?
Range of support of range of projects, as in, well, yeah. So as in the amount, the size of the project, so how many turbines, or to the range on how many projects at the same time we can run, because the range of projects. Well, the biggest ones we've built so far, that was 84 turbines. Yeah, 84 turbines, and in theory, we actually, as a company, and myself and my managers, with what they get from me and the support that we have and the way that we are organized, we actually prefer to do bigger projects than smaller projects. And the reason for that is that the smaller projects, they take just as much, if not more, organizational and focus than the big projects. A big project is one that runs by itself. You control it, you set it up, you monitor it, and it runs by itself. A smaller project takes a lot more organization skills and a lot more focus, which we have. But towards the question, what range, we can go from 1 turbine to 100 turbines. As to if the question is more directed to how many projects we can run, of course, the limitation is on the manpower and the skilled manpower that we can find. But myself, as one of the things that I am, and I wouldn't say promoting, but one of the things that I believe in is that collaboration between companies is a need in this industry. So if we come to that stage where I'm already running 12, 14 projects with my team, and there is a request to run another project or another 2 projects, and I don't have the manpower available because they are simply busy somewhere else, then I will look into a collaboration with other partners that I trust, that have the same skills, that can work with us and with our own organization, and we will run that collaboration. We will operate that collaboration. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that is short. That is how we look into those challenges.
Excellent. I think Gunther, who's raised his hand here, so you want to raise. So Gunther, if you can speak, that's fine. If I need to unmute you, let me know. I can do that.
I'm muted. Let me tell you a little bit about the background of my question. I had an intensive discussion with a company who told me that there are about 50,000 project owners for new energy projects that don't find developers because the developers are focused on the big projects bigger than 80 million in budget. And therefore, they developed a process to standardize a kind of self-service to bring these kind of smaller projects below 80 million to an investor-grade due diligence. And I said, if this is possible, then probably much more smaller projects can be realized. If you like, you can look, I sent you a link to Diligized. They are now based in Portugal, and they are very experienced in placing investor-grade projects to private investors.
Yeah. Okay. So what was exactly the question, and to who you want to direct the question, Gunther, or was just a comment you are making?
Well, insofar it was just a comment.
Okay. No. Yeah. Basically, what I captured was that, and I think you make an excellent point, because it's fair to say that a lot of companies, I think, and for the right reason, right? So we'll look at bigger projects because it makes sense from a margin perspective. The downside of that is actually the smaller projects, the smaller guys get left behind and nothing is moving there. And unfortunately, in a country like Africa, so you have a lot of small projects. So how do we deal with that? And I think what you're simply saying here, which is a brilliant contribution, is there is a way, framework that sort of aggregate all of them so that a guy like Afonso can now come and engage with that. I think what I could definitely say here, I can see definitely a conversation between you, Gunther, and Afonso, just to see how they can maybe add some of the knowledge there to even strengthen or maybe introduce them to the gentleman that you talk. That's fine. Just meet with them. Yeah. By the way, one of the things I forgot to say. So for people that are, let's say, courageous enough to go for the one-to-one and are serious, like I say, please, we like to make sure that we use their time properly and also your time properly. What we've also given as a gift to those people, we've compiled a document where we're having 7 key strategies for leadership that you can apply when you're managing project in renewables energy, right? So that's sort of a little gift that we're giving to you for people that are willing to do that. So definitely click on that link and make sure that you book your one-to-one. And we are aiming to do that very quickly. Most likely we're going to have those one-to-one tomorrow or Wednesday, because I need to get it done very quickly. So is there any other? There was another question. So Rashid, so you can come up. There's a question. Feel free to get any question for Miguel or for George. I definitely seen a couple of questions there.
Yeah, Tony. So this question goes to Mr. George. So the question is, where is a wind energy project most suited to be developed? Is it viable for rural communities? And how do we determine its viability in a given location?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think it's a bit of a complicated, complex question, but still, yes, I can answer it. And thanks, Patrick, for it. I think I'll start at the end. Is it viable for rural communities? Yes, it's viable. I think if you try and look, there's an example in Tanzania. Actually, there's a small wind farm. I think about 3 megawatt, 3 turbines, and hybridized with a small hydropower plant by a company called Rift Valley Hydro. If you look at what they do there, they run a small off-grid kind of operation where they supply electricity to about 5,000 homes or something like that. About I don't know if it's the population or the homes, but about 5,000 customers. And they've installed wind together with hydro to support this system. So it's viable to the extent that you can also kind of hybridize it with other technologies that allow you to supply kind of full-time supply, 24-hour or as close to 24 hours as you can. Where is wind energy more suited to be developed? I think normally there are some metrics when you're doing the project development work. There are some things that you want to confirm. First, that you'll have some sort of financial way of recovering the cost of developing this project. So that means either there's a feed-in tariff system where you get paid for every unit you produce from wind, or there's a formal procurement system if you're going to sell to the utility, which guarantees you a certain price for offtake. Or if in your country, you are able then to also supply directly to some consumer, that consumer that you want to supply to is stable enough or is financially viable enough to support your operations. So they'll be able to pay you for you to recover your costs. And that's the financial part, which is actually the most critical one in the end. But on the technical side, then you also you can go on the Global Wind Atlas. They have wind maps for the entire world. You can almost estimate the wind speed in almost anywhere in this world using that atlas. And then you also need to check where is the closest substation. And if you have a decent kind of distance between where your point where you're defining the wind farm is and where the substation is, then that's already a big plus. You want that distance to be as short as possible. You want the substation that is close to your site to be able to take the power that you project you could produce in that site. And then specifically on the site itself, you want the site to be as smooth as possible so that your EPCs can actually drive trucks up the hill. Mostly it's on a hill. If you're lucky, it's on flat land. You want a location where the logistics work out. And then now you consider all the way from a port where you would get your equipment onto site and how easy it is to move things around on that site. So in general, these are the main things that you would be looking at. And then, of course, don't forget every project is always hosted by some sort of community. So you need to engage the community there, ensure that there's a proper title over the land. You need to explain to them how wind works, how it might impact them, and then find ways to minimize the impact as much as possible. Then, of course, do the formal process of the governments of allowing you to do the wind energy business. I think I'll stop there, but yeah, I'll try to give an overview of it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for that, George. So, like I said, we have another 10 minutes or so before we wrap up, so we can definitely take a couple of questions there. Just time as well for me to say that, yeah, thank you. I think I've already seen a couple of people obviously booked the meeting with Afonso, so thank you for that. If there's any other guys doing that, please let us know ASAP. That'd be great. And then obviously, like I say, it's a chance for you to ask a question. It doesn't need to be necessarily on wind. It could be on solar as well, because obviously the way you manage your site, the way you handle those projects, it's usually the same. And most of the time, what I see from my experience is a lot of local developers don't just have the right experience, don't know how to package projects so that they are technically viable for investors to be able to look at that. And I know Afonso and Miguel, they're working a lot with investors as well. So that's what I'm saying. So if you have guys like that, that can give you the key advice that you need to bring your project up to speed. I personally won't want to miss that. So I'm just saying that so that you understand what we're talking about here, right? So very, 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 very important. So any other question that we could see here? So let me just see. So yeah. Oh yeah. By the way, yeah. Yes. Answer to that is yes. Rashid, you had a question for me. But any other question that we could see? Yeah. That we could, or somebody want to raise his hand. I saw a question regarding investment here. So who's this? It's Philemon. You say, can you elaborate? Can you read that question for me, Rashid? Because I could see a question here regarding investment.
All right, sure.
Or is Philemon around? Maybe he can ask a question himself. Yeah, he's here. So Philemon, come on. I can see you here. You can unmute, or do you want me to unmute you? Okay, Philemon, you're muted there. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to read. My name is Kipkach Philemon. I'm going just to read the question as it is. Kindly, please, you can elaborate on how leadership fosters a relationship with investors, financiers, and maybe stakeholders to secure funding for wind energy projects, and probably emphasizing the role of public-private partnership in driving investments. Thank you.
So, okay, so if I summarize, you want to understand a little bit more, so how maybe the right leadership approach, leadership skills connects with investments and investor relationship. Is that what you're talking about, Philemon? I just want to make sure that we get it right.
Yes.
Okay, so Miguel, Afonso, feel free to jump in, and I'm sure Joe will have a couple of things as well you want to say, because he's talked about the PPP. So yeah.
I from my perspective, or from my experience, is that of course when it comes to public-private partnerships, or any partnership, I think it goes into how are you driving it. So the first thing that as any collaboration needs is you need to understand, or you need to establish where will it end, or how will it end. Once you've established how the collaboration will end at some point, then you'll be able to know what everyone's influence is and what everyone's benefit is. So the mutual benefits into that collaboration. Being that in public to OEM, being that in private or public-private, the leadership that you show, or the way that you are fostering the projects, the way that you are leading the projects into success will also determine the way that your investment funds come back to you. So if the start is not established correctly, or if the start is established on not clear communicated targets, in not clear indicative ways of working together, ways of collaborating together, then of course, that the information that the investment or the funding needs to have and can then release the fundings into it will also be very poor. So it's all about how much you put into it and how much you get out of it. You'll get the same. So if you put in a poor or a lack of effort, if I may say so, it's not a good old word. It's not a good way to describe it. But if you go into any project with a lack of commitment, then that will be also the same input that you'll get out of it from investment. So leadership, or the relations between both need to be fostered correctly. They need to be established from the day one, and you need to understand where do you go in the end once it's closed. So that's my way of looking into it.
Excellent. Anything you want to chip in, Miguel, George, before we wrap it up?
About this fostering of investors, and same as Afonso was saying, I would just want to emphasize that one of the main steps in any project is establishing clear objectives. So as soon as that's established, then it's just a matter of managing the project, and that's the way we try to always approach each project. So
excellent.
Maybe for me, from my end, I would just add that, and I think it has been mentioned before, communication. Huh? So understanding what the financier wants to hear, like how they want to hear it, understanding what the developer is saying, because there's some certain specific things that all these people are looking at when you send them a presentation, when you ask for a meeting. So it's really important as the leader in the project, in whichever side you're sitting, to understand what exactly is required, what are the specific things that they want to hear.
Exactly.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm sure there's still a lot of questions. Please don't hesitate to send more questions to us. What we're gonna do, just gonna compile them and see how we can give you the answer. And I'm also gonna talk to those gentlemen to see whether we can have a follow-up, because like I say, there's more questions coming. Obviously more questions are in my inbox, but as you know, so one of the things that we always pride ourselves to do within renewables in Africa. So we take your time very seriously. I know we started a little bit late because we had some technical issues. My personal apologies for that. Make sure that next time we don't come across that. But we also want to make sure that we end on time, because we booked those gentlemen for 75 minutes. So it's important to do that. So I'm just gonna nicely bring us towards the end, and I'm just gonna ask them, guys, gentlemen, if you don't mind. So a very short a conclusion point from your side. We keep it short because we need to be done with the next 4 minutes. And while you're doing it, we're just gonna kick off another exit survey just to find out how what you think about the session. So was it meeting your expectation? No meeting your expectation. So this is the way we can find improvement for ourselves. So anybody want to maybe have a closing message? Like I say, make sure that you keep it brief. And while you're doing it, I'm just going to kick off the poll for anybody want to contribute. So that's the exit survey to see whether people are happy or not. Yeah, that's it. So let me just go. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for dialing in and for participating. As a closing note for myself, as a CEO of a company, as I've said before, and it's been here mentioned several times, it's all about communication, and it's about dedication also, commitment. So any company or anyone that is out there working in this industry, any other industry, it doesn't really matter. If you don't establish bylaws, if you don't establish ground rules for communication, for following up, for structure, if you don't understand when you go into a collaboration with anyone, be that a company that works along with you or a customer of yours, if you don't establish what the mutual benefits is for both, if you don't establish where you're going to go from it and where you're going to take it, then you're always running after the facts. Or if you plan ahead, the organization planning ahead is sometimes something that, not sometimes, it's something that is really necessary. And it takes time, it takes an effort, and it takes that extra dedication needed to accomplish that, and to establish that. But it is also what, in the end, will make the difference to a successful project or a less successful project. Every project is successful, everything gets done in the end. But does it get closed out in a correct way, or does it get closed out in a way that it extends for several months afterwards? So that is my input towards the end of this webinar.
Excellent. Last but not the least, anything from you? That okay, excellent. I think we're just gonna call it a day. So all I just want to say, I just want to thank you, all of you, for participating in a very interesting conversation. As you could see, so we thought 75 minutes would be enough, but clearly it is not enough. So we need to continue with the conversation. So we'll think about that. So what we've done here today, explore the various facets of leadership, right? That are, according to us, essential in order to foster an effective collaborations between utilities, but also OEM. In the energy sector, surely, but also I would say I like to extend it to the whole renewables energy sector. And as we are moving forward today, I want us just to carry this lesson, and these strategies in our projects, to build a more integrated and sustainable energy future. So that's what we all about. That's what we're all working toward. Yeah. So I'd like you to stay engaged, continue asking questions. So, and let's charge forward towards a transformative change in the wind energy and also in renewables energy globally. So thank you very much for your time. It was definitely exciting to have you here. So we're just going to close shortly in music. That's what I would say. And then please don't hesitate to leave your details, ask your questions. We'll look at that, see how we can respond to them. You can also see there is a various link for social media handles there. So we recently reached 1,000 followers and subscribers on on YouTube. So please, if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe. And we're going to bring more and more content like that for you. So Miguel, Afonso, and Joe, thank you very much. Gunther, everybody participating, thank you also for my team. A real pleasure to work with you. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll be seeing you very shortly in another webinar for sure. So thank you and bye-bye.